30 so I can like calculate.
Okay, good idea. Gotcha. Okay.
So for some context to my project this year, I've been reading statistics all over the news, such as a quarter of all teens are persistently anxious, or 32% are persistently sad. And so I decided to do my project this year proactively. I decided to stop my mental health from getting bad before it had a chance to get bad. I decided to work out and get healthy before I had a chance to be unhealthy. However, no matter how hard I felt like I was trying, I felt like I still managed to consistently fail. I felt like no matter how hard I would try to get better, I would still end up feeling worse. I would work out, but I didn't feel like it really counted as a workout at all. Often I felt like I wasn't stressed enough about my project. I felt like if I wasn't stressed enough about my project, it meant that I wasn't doing any work at all. Because if my project wasn't stressful, did it even mean anything? And I think part of this is because I hadn't realized that mental health is not a destination but a process. You can't overnight become mentally healthy. Overnight you can't change your whole life or change completely how you're doing things. And so I realized that I seemed to enjoy pre-suffering. I would do more work so that later on I felt like I would have done something worthwhile. I would work harder on assignments that didn't take harder work. I would do geometry assignments that weren't due yet so that I could feel like I was ahead of the class or that my work was worth something. However, I think that this pre-suffering ended up just causing more suffering in the long run because I wouldn't get better grades because you can't go over 100. And as Thich Nhat Hanh says, with mindfulness you can establish yourself in the present order to touch the wonders of life that are in that moment. And I think this really well reflects it, because if you're not focusing on the present moment and your assignment, you're not really focusing on what you're learning. If you're focusing on future assignments, you're not running the curriculum that you should be running at that moment. And I felt like I was unable to change my ways, because I felt like if I did change, I was being lazy, or I wasn't doing any work at all, or that I was completely useless in the grand scheme of things and I was destined to fail out of high school. So I gave up completely on changing who I was, and I decided to just throw my hands up in the air and decide that there was no point in trying to change. And so instead of changing who I was completely, I would make one small change every day. I would do something I knew I could change and something that I thought was manageable. Instead of deciding that I was a failure if I didn't eat healthy breakfast that day, I decided that was one opportunity for me to eat healthier the next meal. I decided that one failure meant that I had a base point to grow from. Many of our failures are people who do not realize how close they were to success when they gave up to begin with. If I didn't eat healthy and then I gave up on eating healthy completely, I would never have realized how healthy I could have become from that point onwards. It's important to not give up when you feel like failure, and instead recognize that as a baseline starting point to grow yourself more further. One choice doesn't define a full day. One choice doesn't change who you are completely for the better or for the worse. And I think over time, it's more important to create long-standing patterns of habits that you can continually take and continue to do over the course of a long period of time. Something that makes you feel good about yourself and something that makes you feel better about yourself. Little changes I enjoyed doing was changing my Netflix out for TED Talk podcast, or maybe not having some macaroni and cheese for dinner. It wasn't that these things were completely exiled from my life to begin with, but it's that these things are maybe choices that I know won't make me feel better in the long run. So instead I changed them out for something that I felt was more manageable and more sustainable in my long-time life. Little goals can be equivalent to big progress. Every day, working out for 7 hours might not be manageable. We have school, we have things to do. But saying, I want to work out for 30 minutes after school every single day is a manageable goal that I think we are all capable of if we put our minds to it. So I found that instead of counting myself off completely when I didn't clean my whole room and deep clean my whole life, it was more effective to say that I needed to make a small cleaning that day, or do some small task that I thought I could actually complete instead of blaming myself when I could not complete the task. It's also important to recognize that everything gets easier. As you get more in tune with the fact that you don't have to do big tasks all the time to be productive. It gets easier to not be productive and not view yourself as lazy. It gets easier to continue to change your habits, and it gets easier to start tasks when you realize that those tasks don't inherently mean you're going to be suffering later on. Society, I think, likes to tell us that suffering is productive. However, I would debate that's not solely true. I think I can do an assignment just as well in half an hour than in an hour if that hour wasn't really necessary for the grade to begin with. It was just a 5-point assignment. And I think that it is hard to change. It's hard that we feel like others are judging us, because if we're not productive, we feel like we're lazy or just not good people, because everyone around us feels like they're suffering or they're doing so much better than we are. And I think the big thing is acknowledging the issue and acknowledging that there's nothing inherently wrong with us if we don't feel like suffering all the time. And none of these things are suffering. Eating some McDonald's for breakfast doesn't make you a failure of a human being. Watching some Netflix after school doesn't make you a failure of a human being. I think the grand scheme of things is making who you are as a person someone that you're happy with and someone you're proud of over a long period of time. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
I don't know, how long was that, Ms. Schreiner?